know this the hottest pot show. Heard that, she got the juice, everything she says is truth. If you don't know, now you know, all you ever gotta say is heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that. Look, all you ever gotta say.
What's up, Heard That Nation, listening in the United States and around the world. You are listening now to the Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, which I suggest you do because of today's guest, is going to be amazing. Click that subscribe button. Tell everybody about this amazing YouTube series that I got going on. I suggest that you listen to it on the podcast and then also check it out on YouTube streams, because this guest that I have here today, many people have followed him, and the most comments that I've got when I read where he is going is that people wish they were in his suitcase, because he is truly a world traveler. He is a social media contributor on CBS, The Insider. His tweets and posts have been on The Talk, The View, and the Oprah Winfrey Network, just to name a few. He has been a social media correspondent on Entertainment Tonight and on the red carpet for the BET Awards. He writes, he has his own amazing web series, 3LWTV. He's an advocate, he's a friend, he's a brother, and I believe undercover, even though that I'm gonna try to make him admit it, I believe that he is the other best friend of Oprah, Gail Winfrey. Everybody, please welcome Lionel Williams to the Heard That podcast. Hello, my dear friend.
Hello, Marisa.
I feel like you're channeling her. That was so well.
It is such an honor to be here, and I love what you're doing. I love your platform. I love your passion, especially your passion. Even though I'm not a sports fanatic, I love your passion for sports, because it's like, she like to maybe get me excited about stuff that I don't even care about. So I love that. I love that you're like so passionate about that, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love what you're doing. And like I said, many people that follow you on Twitter and on Instagram think that they know where you are. It's like kind of the game of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? It's like, where in the world is Lionel Williams going to be next? And people that are planning their last minute vacations, because I didn't realize it here in Texas, many of these kids are going back to school next week. They will be in school. So it's usually the mid to late August where people are planning their last minute trips, when people are planning their last minute trips like right now. I like what you do when you are traveling, that when people that are following you, and I believe that everybody should, after listening to today's podcast episode and watching it on YouTube, I just feel that when you're traveling now, Lionel, that you are embracing where you're at. There's a difference, and you can clarify for me, there's a difference between someone being a tourist and someone going to somewhere, a different place, a different space, different country, time zone, whatever, where they're going in and they're fully taking in the moment, fully embracing where they're at. So tell me about how you just started your love for traveling and going to all these places that you've been to.
I think of the seed for travel that was planted by my grandmother when I was a kid. She used to take me on road trips. She and my granddad would take me. They like to drive everywhere across country. So I didn't know better then, even though I did a little flying as a kid, but I did cross country road trips with them. And I just loved like going to the Grand Canyon and getting back to school, and, the teacher might be talking about this thing. I was like, oh yeah, that's where I went this summer. And it just broadened my perspective. So that seed was planted very early on. And it was probably though in my mid-20s when I started traveling internationally. And the more that I did it, it was first, actually one of the main things that I liked about traveling internationally initially was the way I was treated as a Black person outside of America. Y'all ain't ready for that conversation.
Oh no, go ahead, go there.
But really, a lot of times when I was traveling, it was like I was welcomed and celebrated in all of these spaces. And I just thought, well, wait a minute, you're not following me. I walked into the 5-star hotel and they're like, Mr. Williams, welcome. And they're phone, not even a 5-star back then. It was not even 5-star. It was like maybe 3 or 4. But anyway, but the people were always like welcoming and happy to see you, and they wanted to talk to you. It was like if you went shopping, people were eager help you, and not just to help you, but to get an opportunity to know you and chat with you, as opposed to, am I being followed around the store because I'm looking suspect? So that was one of the initial joys that I liked about traveling internationally in my mid-20s. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Right.
But the more that I did it, and the more that I got out into these different countries, and to watch the media outside of America, it was just like my mind was just expanding and expanding and expanding. It's like, oh my goodness, we have such a narrow, limited scope. We think we have everything, but our images, are curated, and our news is curated, and it's that they want you to have to see a specific thing, item, or whatever. So you're not getting a comprehensive view. So that was one of the things that I loved about traveling, is how it was opening my mind. And I grew up in California, in a very diverse area, in the Bay Area. So I was kind of used to different cultures, but to actually go to some of these places, it's like, well, that's not the stereotype that, or the ignorance that I had in the back of my head about this particular culture. That's not what I'm experiencing here. So that was one of the greatest joys for me. And I have just been nonstop ever since. I was like, I need to find me a job that's going to help me travel. And then when I'm not traveling for work, I'm going to travel for pleasure. And all these years later, I'm still doing it.
Some of the places that you've been has just been absolutely extraordinary. And I know you probably get this asked all the time. Where has been your favorite all-time favorite place to visit?
Right. So I don't have, I do get that question a lot, but I don't have a singular all-time favorite place. Now, but I've got a couple of favorites for different reasons. And so for man-made creativity and architecture and just like over-the-top fun, it's Dubai for me, hands down. I love visiting there just because it's just I marvel at what they just build out in the desert, and not because they need it, but because they can. It's like, okay, you've got all this land, but you want to build an island out, you want to build a whole city out on the sea because you can. Oh, okay. So that's one of my favorites. As far as like nature and like really being in my Zen moments, I really adore Costa Rica for that. It's just something about the people that I love down there, the rainforests, just being at one, communing with God, and just really getting centered. I really do that a lot in Costa Rica. As far as historical ancestral connection, I love Ghana. I love the people there. I mean, I've got a network of friends there, but I also love the empowered feeling that I get when I go back and pay homage to the ancestors.
I love when you visit Ghana. For me, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. For me, when you visit Ghana in that space, in that beautiful country, because your pictures that you make it more than just about the photos. For me, and I believe I've commented, I mentioned it to you, it's like a history class of what you teach from the photo. With you in so many places that you visit, I think that you have the gift of teaching about where you are, but also broadening the mental of everyone that is following with you. It's not just you traveling these places, oh my gosh, the people, the food, the sights, and everything else. There's a history, there's a backstory to it. There is the people that have been there their whole entire lives, born and raised in that particular city, in that particular country. There's a story you are telling, I believe, through them. I mean,
and I try to do that because I want the whole reason that I like to share is because I want to inspire people to expand their minds, expand their horizons. And you're going to see things that I enjoy because I'm going to go to places that I enjoy or try to do activities that I enjoy. But at some point, I hope to find something historical, something local, some type of connection that lets you see how this particular culture or this particular area has influence on your life today. So whether it be through the food, sometimes it's through the architecture, sometimes it's through just the historical sites, all of these things are connected. And that's what I like, without being overt about it, because I'm not here trying to be a history teacher or tell you what your experience should be in these places, but this is my experience, and this is what I've been taught historically has happened here. And how does that play into, and I want your mind to wander and think and become a little more curious. So I appreciate you saying that, because it is such an honor to be able to do this. But it's even more of an honor and a responsibility that people are following it and watching it and being inspired by it, because why are these things important? Because nobody's ever telling you from an American point of view. They're telling you to go to Europe, maybe South America, but nobody's telling you to go to Africa. If you do, maybe go to the little safari over there, but they're not telling you to go to some of these other countries, because they've already curated this negative image of the continent that does not reflect the reality whatsoever, in my experience. In media, so you have to go and you have to see for yourself. Yeah. So that's what I've been able to do, and like I said, it's a responsibility, but it's such an honor that people do follow it and are inspired by it. And nothing pleases me more than when somebody else goes somewhere and they experience something and they travel and they share it with me. Oh my goodness, yes, that's exactly how this is supposed to work.
I love the connectivity that you have with people that, everyday people, and then people that are well-known, actresses, actors, those that, have that huge platform that follow you as well and see where you travel to. And I think one of the ones that got so much attention that I've seen, not only you comment, but also Oprah showcased it when she had her, I think she did a little thing on like 15, 20 minutes of the 60 minutes. She had a section on there where she went to, and correct me, and educate me where you were at, but it had, and I just see the image, and I'm trying not to get emotional, but when I saw it on TV, and then I saw you visit it, and several other people that are well-known actors and actresses visit it and see it with their eyes, it was the place where they had all the names on the stones of the slaves. I mean, I'm losing words right now. It was people that were, oh my goodness, it was just like pillars of people that were either slaves, and their names were engraved in the stones.
Right, but no, they weren't enslaved, but you're talking about the lynching memorial in
that was
Alabama.
That was it.
So
that was
where
it.
The people, right. So they finally they were able to name at least like 4,000 or 5,000
yes, that is
Black
it.
people that were lynched.
That was lynched.
And
yes.
that was, and you're right. I saw that on 60 Minutes because, of course, Oprah got to it before it opened, so she was able to do the exclusive. And then I went the opening weekend, and another life-changing. Just
how did you feel in that moment walking through? Because you saw it on 60 Minutes, just like many of us have saw it on 60 Minutes, and then you went there. Right. Take us through what your emotions were when you went there, because, like I said, that to me, seeing that on 60 Minutes and seeing your photos. And then you, again, this is your gift. You have a gift of, like, being a tour guide / teacher mashed up in one. And you give us a sense of this is the unfortunate, unthinkable, horrific thing that happened to these Black bodies, these Black souls of people that did existed, and how they were treated. Right. Just
walking through that day, it was raining the day we went, because there's a museum too that's in conjunction with the memorial. They're on separate sites, and the museum traces slavery to a modern prison pipeline, and how it's all related, how slavery, how basically prison system today is modern day slavery, but it traces all of that in the museum. And then you go over to the memorial, which has all of the columns. And like I said, it was raining that day, right? You were asking how I was feeling walking in there. I knew it was going to be a heavy, powerful moment. That was the whole reason for me going there. I wanted to just speak a few names, basically. Yeah. And it was raining. And I remember like standing under the shelter, like, well, I don't feel like walking out here in the rain. I don't really have an umbrella. Well, actually we did. My friend, Aronde, I had two friends with me, and one of them had an umbrella, but there were three of us, right? And I'm like, I'm getting wet, and I'm complaining about all this. And I had to stop and check myself. I was like, okay, wait a minute. How many of these bodies hung out here in the rain without the comfort of an umbrella? Get over yourself. So I marched right through the rain out to the platform. And the platform, the way it is when you start, there are all these columns with names, and they have the states and the counties within the states, and then the names of people that were lynched there. And they're at eye level, right, when you walk in. And then as you walk through, sorry, sorry about that. As you walk through the memorial,
Mhm.
walk through the memorial, it descends, right? So the walkway goes down. So now it looks like the columns are rising. So when you get to the bottom, it looks like all the people are hanging, basically. I mean, it's a very remarkable visual. And at first I just felt overwhelmed, like, no, this couldn't be this many people. And then I saw the county that I live in Atlanta. I saw where a lynching happened here. And it was like two
Oh my
names.
gosh.
And I just thought, whoa, that's where, that's the land I'm living on. So I spoke those names, and it was just a very powerful, moving exhibit. And as my two friends were with me, we kind of separated because everybody just had to have their own,
Yeah.
you had to have your own space in that space. And so we just took time. We went through it at different levels, and occasionally we would meet up and kind of decompress for a moment and then round the corner and go down to the next level. But as painful as it is, once again, it's so empowering. It's the same feeling that I had coming out of the dungeons in Africa. It's like, you know what, if just a little tiny fraction of that strength and resilience resides in me, I'm going to be all right.
Right.
And so so when I leave those situations, I always feel more empowered, more respectful, and more honored, actually, that I was able to pay homage to these ancestors. So I highly recommend it. It's a deep, heavy thing to experience at first, but I guarantee you on the other side of it, you'll be changed for the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. That, to me, when you had your photos up and you just took us through where you were at and the purpose and you speaking their names. And I want you to clarify that because, again, I read through people's stuff and their posts and everything else. And people had said, he goes, well, what's the purpose of saying someone's name that has already passed? What does that do and everything else? And I want you to explain, because I believe your answer that you put for the person, and you said it so respectfully, and I don't think that they answered, or a couple of them, so many people liked what you said. But what is the purpose when you acknowledge someone that has passed, and either they're part of history, they're part of Black history, whether it be something that they did good to open doors for other Black people, or it was, unfortunate sacrifice that they had to deal with. Talk about how important it is to just acknowledge them by speaking their name.
Well, for me, it's a form of gratitude. I believe gratitude is our superpower. And if I'm paying homage and respect to you and your sacrifice, because I understand that even though my life isn't perfect, I have a lot more privilege, especially in comparison to their lives, but it would have never been possible without their lives. I would not have this life that I have and be able to live so richly and so fully if it were not for these ancestors that sacrificed before me. And it is important to never lose sight of that, because that's where I draw my energy from. That's where I draw my strength from. And when days get hard and times get hard, I remember, no, you got to keep pushing through, because you got to make it better for the next generation. And that's why it's a spiritual thing for me to really just to connect and to let them know, listen, your sacrifice was not in vain. We are out here. Some of us are out here living our best lives because of your sacrifice. I know I live a life that you probably could not have dreamed of for me. And I don't take that for granted. And by going back and paying respect to those people, and I'm not related to most of them, and I don't know practically any of them sometimes, personally, but we share that common energy. We share that common spiritual bond. And once you remain connected, it's like being refueled from your source. You know what I'm saying? When your car runs out of gas, you got to go back and get some more gas. When your tummy gets empty, and it starts growling, you got to refill it with some food. You're always returning to the source that feeds you. Correct. And for me, paying respect to those ancestors is constant refueling, so that I can continue to go further and try to soar as high as I can on my leg of the journey. So that's why it's important to me.
That is so beautifully said. And as the wonderful, great Oprah Winfrey says, we are all connected. And it isn't just basically on the outside, because, there's so many different shades and colors and walks of life that walk through this earth. We are intertwined. We are connected. And I love the story on how you and her are connected. And that's why I said, I think secretly deep down, you both are besties. But I love how you both have, you know, crossed each other's paths. How did that generate to where you and her did get to meet and the connection did happen between you and Oprah?
So I've been a fan of hers since she's been a national figure, maybe even before, because I kind of was like, okay, I like the lady in the color. I like Sophia in the color purple. But I really probably didn't become like an Oprah fan until she kind of took off nationally. Because I was on the West Coast, so I didn't know anything about People Are Talking in Baltimore. I didn't know anything about the AM Chicago because I didn't live there. But when she started getting some national attention, I was like, oh, I love this lady's energy. Love what she's about. So I almost had a chance. Well, I met her in 1997 in New York City. That's a whole other story. But basically, long story short, I ended up getting to go to her show. Was taping in New York that week. Janet Jackson was on, and I was a concierge for United Airlines at the time. Janet Jackson had come in to record, and I was, you know, I always handled her when she was coming to the airport, and she was telling me about that they were in town to do the Oprah show, and I'd asked about getting tickets. Long story short, I ended up getting tickets, and I got to meet Oprah briefly after that show. And that was a life-changing experience, even in those few moments that we had. And then fast forward a few years, I almost had the opportunity to work for her. And someone contacted me from her company, and they were like, you know what, I think you'd be a great fit. I know she would love you. Well, long story short, that didn't work out. And at the time that they came to me about with that job offer or to apply for it, I was like, well, I'm not looking for a job. But I said, well, maybe I'll go apply because maybe at least I'll get a chance to meet her again. So that didn't end up working out. But then I kept thinking, well, why, you know, God, why would you even dangle that in front of me? I mean, I wasn't even looking for, I didn't need a job. And, you know, Oprah wasn't like, working for her wasn't on my radar like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I did when that happened is I went in and I shut down my social media because I was trying to curate, you know, make sure that they see the image of me that I want them to see. I wasn't like being my whole complete self, right? And that was the lesson that I learned, because fast forward years later after that, she gets on Twitter, I'm on Twitter, she tweets once, I'm replying 50 times, hoping she'll see one of them. Well, one day she saw one of them, right?
Right. Your whole world changed, and Oprah responds to one of your tweets. You like screenshot it. You know, turn it into your screensaver. You like show your friends. You're like, look, she actually responded. This is not fake.
Yeah. And then I started corresponding a little bit because I was live tweeting every show like it was my job. In fact, Maya Watson, who used to work for her, we had like a Twitter party once, and she stopped by and she said, you are over here tweeting, because I had a whole setup. I had a laptop, an iPad, my phone. I got devices galore. She's like, you over here tweeting like this is your job. I was like, girl, you don't even know.
I know that's
so
right.
Long story short, you know, then I came to an episode of Life Class. And then after that, that's where I met my friend Rich Cruz and his sister Jill. And afterwards, we get a call from Oprah's office saying that, you know, she wants to treat you guys to dinner at her favorite restaurant in Chicago. So we went to do that. And the rest is history. Then she started inviting me to stuff in California. And then, you know, the rest is history. It was like, okay. And then we're chatting online where I would go to an event. Like I was at this thing in Washington, D.C. It was when Maya Angelou got a stamp, like after her death. And I remember, you know, I had gotten tickets because I won them in like this lottery. So I had tickets up in the balcony or whatever. And I was thrilled, but I knew Oprah was going to be there, and Mrs. Obama and a bunch of other people. Even my pastor at the time was there. And, you know, I sent Oprah a message saying, oh, we're here. If you know anyone that has better seats, you know, we're willing to split up or whatever. And so she replied, this is going on in the DM, right?
Right.
And then she replied on the public timeline, check your DM. And so everybody, of course, saw that. And so everybody's going, Oprah's looking for you. Check your DM. What's going on? What's going on? And so I did check my DM, and literally she had gotten me seats right down front. And And it's so funny because like as soon as when I was opening the thing, she said that, look for so and so, blah, blah, they're coming to get you. And I turned up and they were like already up there, ready to take us downstairs. So and just little small genuine acts like that. She didn't have to do that.
Right.
That was not going to move the meter on how much I love you or not. But she's always been so just nice and courteous to me and supportive of me, like I am supportive of her. It's reciprocal. And so, but that our real relationship was born off of Twitter, really. I mean, that's where we initially connected. No one ever believes that, but there are a group of us, the own ambassadors initially, who were corresponding with her on Twitter. Even though I wasn't part of that group, they brought me in after I started having all this, they were like, oh, well, he must not be so bad if she's talking to him on Twitter. And I'm glad they did that because it's a wonderful group, and I've formed some wonderful. Even with the owner, we have the owner. I keep forgetting now. It's the own ambassadors, the owners, and I think there might have been a third one. I'm not, but this wonderful group of people that are all in my life now.
Yes, that she has now bonded all together and calls us light carriers, which I absolutely, I love.
And so that's been wonderful to keep moving in that space. She's just been wonderful. I haven't replaced Gail. I'm not number 2, number 3. Y'all but
I just love the connectivity that you have. And side note, Oprah gives some amazing hugs.
Yes.
She
I'm always trying to get a couple of them.
Yes. I just like, and I'm like, no, Mom, you're still my number 1 hugger. Like, when you get that secure hug, like, you are appreciated, you are loved, you are, it's just
walks the walk, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And encourage her to do the same thing. And she's very, very perceptive of what's going on. I mean, I remember one time she pulled me aside at an event where, because everybody named Mama was in here, right? All these A-listers. And I just really felt like intimidated. And I didn't say anything about it, but then I got and it's hard to get a moment with her in those events because if you've ever been around her, everybody's swarming her.
Oh yeah.
It's like, every other celebrity could be in the room, but half of them are swarming her. So I don't know, she must have sensed that I was feeling uneasy, but she did say to me, you're in the room because you belong in the room. And after she told me that, I was like, oh, okay, I perked right up.
She's like, you belong here.
You're in the room because you belong in the room. And she said that a couple of times to me throughout, she even said it to our group once. She had us say a thing at OWN, but just that understanding that you are worthy. You're not in this space by accident. You're in here to learn, to teach, or whatever, but you're here because you're supposed to be here. And that's where a lot of us, I think, we start to feel intimidated because you're like, well, these people have so much more than me. No, they might monetarily, they might have more money than you, but they don't have more than you per se.
I just took that aha because there's times, especially now I'm going into the 1 year of this wonderful podcast that I have, where I have opportunities. And then I look around and I see, other podcasters and other people that are in there that have done this longer than myself. And I'm going, oh, do I belong here? And questioning that in my head, even though that I walked in with confidence, but saw this person has been on their platform for 10 years, 25 years, 7 years, and also has a national syndicate on this, and just have a loss. And me, I'm live from my kitchen table and I'm just like, maybe I'm in the wrong room. And so that is so good that you said that because, I received that, but somebody that is listening to this, that is wanting to pursue something that has stopped them because they have felt intimidation by someone who has been in the game longer or has written more books or has been on the TV circuit for the longest time. That is such an amazing, beautiful reminder that you just dropped. So I'm taking that gem.
You belong in the room. And think about it like when you're driving down the highway, you glance over to the left to see if you're going to change lanes, or you glance to the right to see if it's clear, okay, or maybe another fancy car passes you. But do you really stick your neck and just like stay over here looking in this lane? No, because you're going to crash your own vehicle, right?
Right.
So that's how you need to drive your life. Stay in your lane, stay focused on where you're going. It's okay to glance over and see what's over here. Is the road clear or whatever? But the interstate is in front of me. The journey, the steps are in front of me. So keep your eyes focused on your lane. You still need to have some sort of situational awareness of what's going on here and here, but you can't be defined by it because you don't know those people's stories. You're looking at what you see.
Right, right.
What you see is a microcosm of the totality of their experience. So you just have to focus on yourself and okay, they may have more shine or more followers this week or next or whatever, but you can't they can't touch people the way that you're touching people. So you have a gift, you have a call, and you're there to do it. So yeah, you can if you can't look at someone and just derive inspiration from it, then stop looking at them. Because if it's jealousy or anger or any other type of emotion other than inspiration, then you probably don't need to be looking in that direction because it's going to question you and you're going to have self-doubt or be intimidated potentially. Right. So you're in the room because you belong in the room.
So good. So good. Everybody better receive that. It's so good. I know she has dropped so many gems, so many things that are aha moments. What is one or a couple or several, Lionel, that Oprah has said that just resonates with you and that's basically became either your daily mantra or a constant reminder in your heart, song in your head that Oprah has said to you or you heard her say on one of her shows or platforms? What is something that just stays with you that she has said?
Probably the biggest one for me personally was listen to the whispers in your life. When those little things come up, you go, but you don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And then it whispers a little louder. You're like, And then, of course, once all the bricks come tumbling down, you have nowhere to go. Then, you give God and the universe your full attention. That I was stubborn like that because I'd be over here trying to construct this narrative and I would know like, no, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, I ain't trying to hear all that spiritual mumbo jumbo right now because I'm trying to, construct this. But God always wins. And so that's what I've learned. But even more so than listen to the whispers, I've kind of stepped it up a little bit and I've learned to obey the whispers. Because before I'd be like, I would hear it and be like, okay, I would acknowledge it, but I would still try to construct my own narrative. But now I'm like, okay, when stuff happens, the first time I'm like, okay, you've got my full undivided attention. Okay, if this is where I'm supposed to do or not supposed to do, then I just obey right away.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most powerful lesson and the lesson that took me the longest to learn. Because you don't always want to trust your instinct, especially if it's something emotional like a partner or a person.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to do that love thing, you're like, you're trying to do that. You're all up in the emotion of it, and it's not right. It's something, that person's not right.
And you're trying to force it
right
to make it right.
Right.
Which is causing you all kinds of chaos up in your spirit. Oh.
Right. And then suddenly, there's restraining orders, houses done burned down, there's divorce proceedings. And you're just like, well, I could have just listened, because, he or she looked good, so I'm good, No. But so I say that to say that was a difficult lesson for me to implement. But the lesson that she taught me was, listen to the whispers. And for me, it's like obey the whispers. And like the first time you hear it.
Yeah.
I don't need to hear it over and over because I know how this story ends because I've lived that enough to trust it.
Yes.
Oh, definitely obey the whispers.
That is so powerful. That's so good. I think that is becoming more visible now with us slowly but surely the world opening up. I know that you have done, so much social media correspondence. You've done red carpet events and everything else. And in 2020, we were put on a timeout. Everything's shut down. Everything stopped. How did you deal with that? Because, like I said, you've been a social media contributor. Your posts and your tweets have been on social media, different platforms, Entertainment Tonight, The Insider. You have visited places. You have, been backstage with well-known artists, actors, actresses, singers, and then it stopped. How did you get through 2020 and keep yourself centered? Because on this show, and I talk about sports and entertainment and movies and travel and everything else, I also talk about mental health and awareness. And we've seen it more than ever now with well-known people. Recently with Simone Biles, withdrawing from an event that everybody said that she was going to be a slam dunk and win the gold medal in. But then she listened to her mental health and she got all this love and support. And unfortunately, you got some predominant people that have a huge platform that basically said she bailed out on her team and used mental health as an excuse. How do you, Lionel, keep yourself centered and keep yourself grounded and keep your mental healthy? Because there's some people still, with the world opening up, that are still struggling with that. And we're seeing that splashed all over, like I said, on TV and on social media and everything else. And then also with us that are not well known and famous, there's friends that I talk to that are just like, a year and a half gone by, almost 2 years, I'm still not okay.
Right. So for me, like all those wonderful things that you said, you left out, I also hang out with presidents. But and I'm just kidding.
Yes, he does that too. Check. Follow him, people. He does.
No, I gotta just that you gotta laugh out of that. But I say all that to say that all of those wonderful experiences and the wonderful access that I've had, they don't define me.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So my mental health isn't contingent upon those experiences. Now, I appreciate them, and when they happen, understand that I am celebratory and I'm glad, and I do practice the gratitude. But for me, whether that's happening or not, I'm going to practice gratitude. So when COVID happened, for the first 6 weeks, I live here in Georgia. We don't really have pandemics here, y'all know. So they don't shut them down. But that the first 6 weeks of the pandemic and the shutdown, people were freaking out, but I got into a new routine because I just take my life day by day, moment by moment. And are you okay in this moment, Lionel? I'm always asking. And if you're not okay, what is it going to take for you to get back to okay? If my spirit is disturbed or my emotions are down, and that's another thing, I try to get back to the center, the level.
Yeah.
I don't. So like I allow myself to experience like the elation of the highs. And I also allow myself to experience the emotion of the lows when those moments happen, right? I just don't get stuck in either place. So I'm always recalibrating, trying to get my mental and spiritual self back to the center where I'm in this steady place of peace. And that sounds easy, but that's a full-time job all day, every day, right? But I know for me, I find that, finding things to be grateful for is the best practice. Like when your life is in shambles and you're thinking, okay, I don't have enough money to pay my bills this week. This relationship is, as long as you start focusing on all those negative things, you're going to draw more negative things to you, right? I don't have enough money to pay my bills. Now you better see your bills being paid. Now your account may not look like it reflects that, but in your mental state, you better be grateful for those lights. Look, I was actually able to have lights this month to create a bill. So so little things like it's just a shift in your perception, right?
Yeah.
So when you find those things to be grateful for, and it's hard when you're in the dumps, right? But that's the most critical time that you've got to do it. So for me, it was constantly recalibrating, trying to keep myself in this mental state and turn off the TV. You may have to unplug from social media. It just depends. If these things are triggering you, acknowledge that they are triggers, right? And detach as much as you can. If you can't do it, like for me, I'm on social media way too much, right? And I will literally try to detox and put the phone down. Okay, well, you had the phone for 2 hours today. Okay, try to put it down for 10 minutes, 10 extra minutes. Build on it, incrementally. But you've got to put yourself on your list, right? And really, it needs to be at the top of the list because you cannot pour from an empty cup, people. You've got to have that full cup in order to let the cup runneth over, so you have something to give someone else. And like moms, especially like single mothers, not even just single mothers, but mothers who are challenged to like work the career and then also like raise the kids or be the primary, person that's responsible for the child rearing or what, all of that stuff. You're trying to juggle all these different things and you feel like you don't have time. You better make some time, even if it's 1 or 2 minutes a day. When you get up before all the chaos starts, even if you got to set your alarm for 5 minutes early, get up and maybe meditate, have some tea, something that honors you every day. And you'll start with those few moments. Maybe it's 2 or 3 minutes today. Next week, it might be up to 10 minutes. And before you know it, you'll be your own superpower. So during the COVID, and it was just like, well, if I never got to travel again, I'll still be okay. Because that means that there's something else I need to do in this life. If I'm on this side of the dirt and I'm breathing, there's still purpose. Now, if my purpose is switching now from travel to something else, then let it be. I'm not just going to be defined by, these are experiences.
Yeah.
These are things I'm passionate about. But if they were to just go away, I'm not going to jump out the window. That just means, okay, well, look at this, and look at all the memories that I have, and I can go, I can take myself like, to the Dominican Republic on the beach mentally right now, and be like, yes, I can feel that tropical breeze. Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna get a massage, and I know how these things, I can relate to them. So I always have that to go back to. The mental imagery is very powerful,
right.
And it's often the place where I live in my head, because there is so much foolishness going around that you've got to remain centered, but you've got to put yourself on your list and make yourself a priority, even if it's just for a few moments each day. But you've got to get into the practice of doing that, and before you know it, it becomes a habit.
That has been the difficult thing, is where when the chaos took over, people put themselves on the back burner. And they put everything, and it's so important that you said, like, turn off the TV, shut that off, shut off the negativity, shut off the craziness. I mean, we already got crazy already happening outside. Now it's amplified on the news circuit. It's amplified on social media. And I have learned that myself, to put down my phone an extra 10 to 15 minutes, because I'm like, oh, I got to tweet this out. Oh, I got to see this post. Oh, I got to do this and everything else. And so I had to make it a rule to myself that, you know what, it's not that important. Let me take a moment to reflect. And that's a beautiful thing about having an iPhone, an iWatch, is that it'll pop up that little thing. It'll say breathe. An Apple Watch, it'll say breathe. And I'm like, all right, you take a minute and just breathe. And just breathing in and breathing out. And I'm like, okay, I'm alive. I'm here. What are you grateful for, Marisa? I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I'm able to help my community. I mean, and all of that will start circulating through during that brief moment. And I think that is so, so important for people, just to take a pause. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There is nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's essential.
Yes.
It's wrong when you don't take it, right?
Agreed. Yes. And people don't do that. And they think that, I don't know. I used to be one of those things, like, well, I don't have time. If I stop, and then I'm going to be behind. I'm going to be behind the 8 ball. I won't, get caught up to this, and I'll miss this opportunity and everything else. And it's just like, and I know it was just God telling me, stop and center yourself and focus it on me, and just take that pause for a moment. And just reflect on my goodness. And I mean, during the pandemic was one of the challenging, but one of the best years. I can actually say it was one of the best years that I had, because of the fact of the time where I did reflect on me being here, what my purpose was here, but just sitting still.
Right. And for me, I got to get into a routine, which was unusual for me, because my life is just pack, unpack, do laundry, repeat, travel out the door, go. So during the first month of the pandemic, I was like, oh, I could get up every morning and go ride my bike. I could, make my smoothie and have my little breakfast, and then come back and cook something maybe. I got into a routine every day, right? So that was nice too. Because that is just unfamiliar for me, because my routine is chaos. So, but if it meant that I needed to adapt this, I was grateful that I was able to have this new experience, or this experience I hadn't had in many, 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 many years. Right. Of getting a daily routine that is the same each day. I might have a daily routine with certain things, but it's not always in the same place or at the same time each day. So that was the beauty of it. And I was grateful for that. I had to find gratitude in all of that. But I do understand how people who are defined by their jobs, or they might be defined by their marriage or relationship. You need to be defined by the truth of who you are. And when you sit in that, all that other stuff is inconsequential. It's nice, and you may attract more of those type of experiences for yourself, but do you, own you, be you. And then that way, nobody can take that away from you.
Right.
Because if you bet on yourself, if you truly bet on yourself, you'll always win. You'll always win. But a lot of us don't do that because we've got, we've been taught, get a job, do this, do that, no, bet on yourself. What are you passionate about? And then make baby steps in that area, baby steps in that direction, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And it doesn't go, it's not like, and it's not a destination that you get to. Yeah. It's not like you arrive at joy and then you're just gonna coast all the way out. No, that's not quite how it works either. It is an ongoing process as long as you're on this side of the dirt. So just get ready to, to do the work. Because if you think about it, you probably don't think about it, but if you're having a lot of negative experiences, chances are you're just doing that anyway, but you're just doing it, you're giving all of your energy and power and focus to the negative things or the lack that you think is in your life. So if you don't do that, if you just flip that on its head and put yourself first and gratitude there and try to focus on something positive, even in the midst of a storm, you'll gradually see things begin to change and you'll transform your life.
I've asked this, and mind you, I had other questions, but you don't drop so many gems. I'm just like receiving them, and I'm hoping that people that are listening and watching on YouTube is receiving them as well. I want to ask you this, and I ask this with most of my guests that I've had on the show. With 2020 being a difficult year, there's always a takeaway that you take out of that year, and you shared some beautiful things with it. And we're still in the pandemic process in 2021, and majority of this year, we're almost 3/4 of the year all the way through. What is your hope for 2021? Because people already want to cancel the rest of this year. And I'm like, you still, baby, what you mean you can't wait till 2022? You still have 2021. The race is not done yet. You can't just stop, run the 400, but you're going to stop at the 300 and just stare at the rest of the 100 meters and be like, all right, well, let me walk back to where I started from and start this 400 again. Well, you didn't complete the 400 because you stopped at the 300 meter mark. It didn't finish the rest of the remaining 100 meters. What's your hope for 2021? And what is it that two-part question. What is your hope for 2021? And what so far has been your takeaway of this year? Because I feel there's always lessons that already have been learned in 2020 that we could carry over to 2021 and either make or break them, hopefully enhance them and make this year better in the process. What has it been for you? Your journey of 2021, what's your takeaway? What have you learned? What is your hope?
Okay, my hope for 2021 is probably the same hope that I have every year. And that is that more of us really start to own our greatness, right? Really own the truth of who we are. That is my hope. Because if you turn on the television and people are, we're always at each other or we're always in disagreement. It's like, no, can you just own your greatness and understand that we can all be different and still respect and love one another? That's my hope, that we kind of get to a space where we can operate that way, but in truth. In the past, we haven't always done that, right? We may have had like a moral code and back in the day but there was also a lot of suppression and people weren't always allowed to be their true selves. So everybody's you could operate in this, under this moral paradigm as long as, you fit some type of American ideal, right?
Right.
So, but that led to a lot of oppression. Driving people to drink and do drugs and all that other mess. So my hope is that, yes, that we can operate in that moral paradigm of separating true good from bad and evil, but operate within the truth of who we are as individuals. Every table with their cards laid out and not be judged and persecuted based on this, that, and the other stuff that everybody else is doing anyway, but because they do the job of hiding it. So that's my hope.
Why is that too? Why do people hide from that? Like that?
Yeah. But
Oh,
you know,
that this is bothering. This is so interesting in my mind. Just why we do that. I don't understand. You know?
yeah. So that's my hope for
Yeah.
the takeaway. The biggest takeaway is, Lord, we got work. Okay.
We do a lot of it. We do have work to
So,
do. Yes.
I see it happening in pockets, but I also know that when you see people, when you see the light bulbs going off and the level of consciousness expanding, there's also going to be an opposite force reacting to that, trying to pull you back down into the barrel like a crab.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've observed so far, is that we still have a lot of work to do, but there is progress. But
Mm-hmm.
progress is not linear, so sometimes you got to take a step up, step to the side. You might be pulled back a step,
Mm-hmm.
and then take 2 steps forward. So I believe we'll get there. And I have to believe that we'll get there. And it's not a political thing at all. It's just, can we just learn to celebrate our humanity? And that's
Yes.
different. And the things that we disagree on, can we just learn to disagree respectfully? So that's part of my hope also, that we get to a place where we can at least disagree respectfully.
Respectfully. And how do you feel? How do you believe that we can just? So many of us are emotionally exhausted. How do we get out of that place? How do we get out of that space of?
So,
how do we get out of it?
Yeah, that goes back to putting yourself on your schedule. Now, I don't know. You may not have time. You say you may not have money to do this. People like, one of the things I get all the time is, well, I can't afford to travel. No, sweetie, you can't afford not to travel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So find whatever way you decompress. What is if you had an afternoon to just chill and do nothing? Just picture yourself having a day to do nothing. What is it that you would do with that day? Right? Would you go for a walk in the park? Would you sit up and read a book? Would you, I don't know, go for a run? Maybe you might go work out. I don't know, whatever it is, you've got to find that. And maybe you don't have a whole day to do it, but carve out a few minutes.
Yes.
Do it. So that's the only way you're going to recharge is you got to go back to your source, right? Because these forces are going to be pulling at you left, right, and around and driving you nuts if you let them.
Yeah.
But if you just step back and put yourself first for a moment and decide, I'm going to demand and command a few moments of joy today, because I'm entitled. I can't operate on this day without. Just like you can't make it through the day without food, you should force yourself to navigate the day with a few moments of joy. You're entitled to them. So you got to find something, even if it's just for a few moments, and that's how you'll begin to restore your mental health. Because if you otherwise, you can't. Nobody can sustain this mess. This mess is coming at an accelerated rate, left, right, and around. Everywhere you go, madness, right? So you've got to be in touch with you. So if you can't put yourself in a space where you can pour into your own cup for a few minutes each day, then you won't get out of the mental anguish that you're in. But if you do that, you'll gradually pull yourself out of it, because we all are mentally exhausted. And guess what? That's not going anywhere. So it's up to you to change the dynamic in your own life. That's all I'm saying. It's up to you. It's on you, boo.
Yes, on you, boo. Y'all better receive that. Woo! Y'all better receive that. I'm waiting for this man to write like a series, a play, a coffee table book. Like I'm ready for, your beautiful photos that you put out on your social media platforms into a book with these knowledgeable droplets that you put. No, not droplets, gems. That's what they've been. I learned something. I hope that people that tuned in today learned something from you. Where can they follow you on social media?
So anything the number 3 LWTV. Everything is 3LWTV. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Google, and I have 3LWTV.com also, which is a site which has all the information is there as well.
Talk about that real quick. 3LWTV.com. I didn't talk about that. Talk about what your website is about.
So basically it's an offshoot, because I had a web series by the same name a while ago, and then I ceased doing that. But really, I'm curating books, I've said that word a lot in this. That's my new favorite word this week, curate. I'm curating a lot this week. But I've got a lot of books that I like to share. I've got a book club, online book club that we're discussing different authors. And a lot of them are people with phenomenal life stories. Some of my travel stuff is also there. There are a couple of guest contributors who contribute for the travel. But basically, I want it to be a resource for people to just find ways to be inspired to uplift themselves in their own lives. So I don't have a patent on this joy thing. You just do the work and you can have it too.
Amen. Amen. Why do I need notes? Why bother? I'm done. There it is.
saying.
A whole word right there. And okay, so that's why I always want to ask you, the number 3, is there a significance that you've had that in all the titles on your social media, on your website, the number 3?
No, no, not at all. In fact, a former friend of mine is the one that came up with the name 3LWTV, because when I first started entering the digital space, I had a blog and it was called Living and Loving Life with Lonell Williams. And so that was 3 L's were the living, loving life, right? And so that's where the 3L, but then at the time there was a singing group that had 3LW. Right? So that's why we added the TV on the end to it. Cause I was like, I like that, but I can't use their name. So I to it. So that's where it came. So the 3 has no other significance besides that. No, that's it. But that's the first time I've ever been asked that question.
There you go. Because I always wondered about that. I'm like 3LW, and it did remind me of the singing group. And I'm going, okay, I wonder if it's because of that. You threw the TV at the end. So, but y'all follow this man. I took a lot away from our conversation today. Y'all please follow him. He is on Twitter. He is on IG, 3lwtv.com. I'm going to be waiting for him to come out with a fabulous book because it's coming. I know that he has in the spirit to write a play or a movie because I know that's coming too. And follow him because if you think you can't get away for a moment, follow him because he will take you to where he's at somewhere around the world. I know he's got more stamps in his passport than I don't even know. Frequent flyer miles for decades. I mean,
there's a lot of them.
Oh, Lonell, this has been a treat. It's been an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, and I hope to see you and our family over at Minnie's Food Pantry. I got to shout out Cheryl because that's my girl.
Cheryl Action Jackson, shout out, my mentor.
Hoping I get that. Yes, to see you guys again soon, and I appreciate this opportunity so much. And it is always good to talk to you. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it.
Thank you so much, and always I end the show with our wonderful friends that are listening. Always take care, stay safe. Bye, y'all.
Bye.